Alright, back again, Luke here. And as you can see in front of you, today what I thought we could do is a bit of a repair slash modding video. You'll notice that I have the controller grip here for the Nintendo Switch, and I picked these up online. These things were about $8, I think, each, and they come with two of the plastic holders on the inside. And what these are designed to do is give you a little bit more of a grip on the original controllers because they're so small. It's interesting because it says on the back here, high quality, it has a humanized design, and it says used for the left and right for the joystick controllers, but unfortunately these things are very far from usable. What I mean by that is I've already taken these out of the box here just to show you what they look like. Here are the original controllers here, what the cases look like, and what they've done is they've basically made this a uni design, it looks like, so you can put the left controller in here and the right controller. But you'll notice up at the top here it's got some very small tabs. These ones are to push down on the SL and SR buttons. But unfortunately, when I tried to use these things today, I found one big problem, and that is they do not work whatsoever. And the worst one is by using the left part of the Joy controller. This one, if we push this in here, what I realized is that when I was playing some Mario Kart 8, trying to press down on the buttons, there's nothing. And there's nothing here. Now, if I really press down on it super hard, I can get a light to pop on. Or if I try and do it on the right side, I don't even think the right side works. No. So the right side, I mean, this is like, you can see the discoloration in my thumb here. Probably how hard that I'm pushing down on this. But yeah, there's nothing. There's absolutely no response from these. So what it is basically it's an $8 piece of plastic that will only allow you to use maybe one controller, the right half, and then other than that you can't do anything. So, I mean, being $8, I didn't really expect too much. I saw the reviews on it. It didn't receive such high star ratings for these. But I figured I'd give it a shot, and lo and behold, this thing, you know, they need some help. So what I figured we could do today is take a look at these, open them up, see if we can modify these a little bit better to make them work with these controllers and be able to function properly. And I know that a lot of you out there might be thinking, okay, it's $8, it's not worth modifying, just send it back and, you know, pick up the Pro version of the controllers. Pro version controller right now is about $80, I think, or 8,000 yen here in Japan. And there really aren't many other options to use besides just the regular controller itself. And these pinpoint parts on the top, like SL and SR, are really difficult. They're kind of, you know, they leave their mark on your fingers after a while too. So what's nice about these is they'll give you a little bit more leverage. So what I'm hoping here is we can get these things modified up and maybe be able to use them a little bit more or a little bit better than they are right now. But that's going to be our challenge for today. A little bit of a mod video, I suppose. Probably not going to be something for everyone, and I'm sure this is going to be something that you know, not everybody can go out and easily do, but just something to, you know, have fun, make an interesting video on, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is go on to the next step. We'll take these things apart and see what the insides look like. So we'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so now that we've got everything taken apart, just basically removing those screws, you'll find that these buttons have a spring attached to them on the bottom, and these springs are just kind of sitting in there. And when you go to take the unit apart, or the controller apart, this will just pop right out. So these kind of fit into here, like so, and this is it. So this is what goes into making this very cheaply built, very cheap design. But to give you guys another idea here with the controller apart, what's going on, so you guys can see it a little bit better, is let's say we set our controller in like so. And keep in mind this is just one of the controllers, but at the top here, if you take a look, you can see here is our button. I mean, it's just pressing down on half of it, not doing anything super spectacular, not even making it easy enough to control one side just due to the angle here. And then the other side is 10 times worse. So what we're going to do is try to figure out a way to make this to where it can push down on the middle of the button as closely to the middle of the button as possible. And once again, we're going to try and do this with a left and a right, so that way we don't have to do this twice. But once we get that done, then we'll go ahead and put it back together and give it a test and see what happens. But I'm going to get to drilling and whatnot, and I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here, we've still got our mess of parts. What I've decided to do is I started going through my parts bin, and I came across a lot of these small screws. Maybe you saw that in the last section there. I found all these small screws, and what I was thinking is maybe I could use this as a post or so to try and maybe get more leverage when you go to push down on the button. Luckily enough, if you go and you take a look at the bottom here, there's a small plastic post, and in this plastic post here, there's a small screw hole. Well, there's a small hole. So what I did is I took the right controller and I mounted a screw, a very small screw. This is something that you probably find in maybe a small handheld or something like that. And I've threaded the screw through to the bottom here, and I've made it almost flush with the top. And as you can see here, it's kind of a little bit higher than the other side, but I think if we thread it down just a little bit more, I can get it flush with that small tab. The reason why I want to do that is because when the controller sits in there, like back in here like so, when we go to take a look at this, this will be maybe the left side. You can see now we're getting full range here. We're getting both sides. We're getting the left side and the middle. So this is getting one whole side to go down. Now, unfortunately, if I try and do it with the same with the right side, it's not going to work because the right side is here. It's on the outside. So all we're getting is just this part here. So if I put a screw in here, all it's going to do is hit the plastic here. So what I have to do on the left side is I'm going to have to mount something else on the outside here so that it connects with this part on this or this tab here. So a bit of a pain. If they had everything spaced out perfectly, just adding 2 screws into this would make this a perfect fit and it would work perfectly. But unfortunately, since they didn't do that, we're going to have to do a little bit more creative stuff. Now what my idea is to take like something like this. This is a metal bracket. It's a very thin piece of metal, and what I'm going to do is maybe cut a piece of this off so it's kind of in a square shape, and I'm going to heat it up, and then I'm going to push this into the plastic and make like a T-shaped key. And that way, with that T-shaped hanging out there, that should give me a little bit more leverage. So what I'm going to do is chop this thing up, try and heat it up, and then we're going to push this into the side here and see if we can get that going. But I'll get on that and I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so before we go any further, one thing I realize I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to make a pilot hole in the top of this case so that we can allow that screw to go through. Because if not, all it's going to do is hit the top of this case here. So what I'm going to do is use my drill, and we're going to try and push a hole through in the top of this and make it probably just enough to where the screw head can fit through, but not the whole plastic piece, that whole plastic post. And then once we get that done, hopefully this will be able to click a little bit easier. So I'm going to get on that and be back in a little bit. Alright, so what I've done here is just using a bit of a red marker. I've kind of colored the end of this so I could put this back together and get a little bit of an idea where that hole is going to have to go. And you can see the hole is going to go here up at the top, and now you just use some regular rubbing alcohol to try and remove this because we don't want any paint on the controller, but this will at least give me a pilot hole that I know where I can put this and see how that works out. So I'm gonna get to drilling a hole in that, and then we'll come back and see how it works. So I'll get on that and see you in a few. Okay, so as you can see here, what I've done is drilled out the hole. Now one thing I had to do is I had to create a much larger hole than I had originally anticipated, and the hole itself had to come much closer towards the front of the controller. The reason for that is just for the clearance of the screw. When I tried to put the screw in and then try and hold this thing down, it would get stuck. So the hole is a little bit more oblong, and it's a little bit closer to the front. But one other thing that I had to do now that I had made a little bit of a larger hole was to change the spring size due to the fact that the current spring size would pop right through here. So what I did is I kind of stretched out the spring a little bit just by using a pair of side cutters just at the very bottom to kind of twist it out a little bit more. And what that'll do is prevent it from going through the hole there. And essentially what we'll get here, if we can do this one-handed, I'm not sure if this will work. So we should get something a bit better. Oh, there we go. Oh, is that together? There we go. Okay. So if you take a look here, now you can see at the bottom, you can still see some paint on the screw, and you can see the screw hole, but the spring isn't popping through. But when we push down here, you can see our screw now comes down and makes much, much better contact with that button. So to give you an example here, if we use this controller, this is our, maybe, what is this one? This is the right controller. When we go to push this one down in here, and now if we go up to the top, you can see it doesn't require much at all. It works out quite well. And if we can get inside here to show you guys, is there any way to see that? Probably not. Yeah, unfortunately, there's just not enough light, even if we do that. But the controller itself does have a much, much better grasp on the buttons here. And the problem is, if we go and we try and use the other one, actually, this one might work a little bit better. Let's see. Let's grab the other one here. And we'll pop this one in. Oh, probably because I touched the other button. Let's wait for it to go off. Yeah, as you can see here. So, I mean, I'm pressing down on it quite firmly, and it's not doing anything. So this is the problem. With one controller, it would do one left side or one right side better. The other one, it'll work with the other side. I mean, it just depends on which controller you have in there. So what we'll do is we'll make this one our dedicated right side controller, and then with the opposite one, we'll do that with the other controller. This is the original. And the original has a tendency to, like I said, if you push down really, really hard, you'll probably be able to... Okay, this is nothing. Okay, if you press down, ram down really hard, you can get this to light up. And then this side here, if you press down really solid, you can get it to light up. But normally with this controller, you shouldn't have to do that. And especially for some people who just don't have the strength to press down on some of these, you know, to get these like especially for like kids or whatnot, it makes it really, really hard to start up. Yeah, so I'm really pushing down on this, and this is the left controller. So left controller, SR1 button, absolutely nothing. So this one is probably the one that needs to be fixed, I think, the most out of all of them. But nonetheless, here we'll get the rest of it fixed up. We'll try and go to the next step of modifying this one so we can get a nicer grip on that, and then we'll go from there. So I'll see you guys here in a little bit. Okay, so as you can see here, what I did was take a piece of metal off of that last metal bracket that I had, and I broke it off, and I used my handy torch here. This is my pocket torch, and using a pair of needle nose pliers and holding it in place, I heated up the end, and once it got to a hot enough temperature, I went and I pushed it through into the plastic to make this T-shaped here. Now, another thing that we could probably do is we could add some glue or so on the side to make sure that this thing stays in place, because we don't want it to move around. I'm guessing that it probably isn't going to move around too much the way it is, but this is the way the tab was inserted. It's a little bit shorter than the bottom here, but it should still provide enough access to push down on the buttons, and it does go through quite a bit. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to have to drill another hole and make another cut, I think, in the top part of the controller in order for this section to be able to push through. So what that means is probably right in the dead center here, I'm going to drill a hole just to make sure that there's some clearance for that so it can slide down through that space. So what I'm going to do is get on that, I'll drill a hole here, and hopefully that'll be enough to get our controller to work properly with both left and right on the joystick. So I'll get on that and be back in a little bit. Okay, so what I've done here is I've created my key-shaped hole, which I can use my button here that I've designed to go into. What I've also done is kind of beveled the bottom part here of the metal to make it a little bit smoother on the side. And now, when we put this thing back together, we have to put the this top part back in first, but a little bit difficult to see here. But you can see, so this thing comes down now with the triangle or the T shape at the bottom, so that should allow for a much better connection here with the controller. So what we'll do, I guess, is we'll kind of slap this thing back together to give you an idea what this looks like now that we've got everything taken apart. This is, I think we said this was going to be our right one. So as you can see here, this is how they've designed this. This is the pilot hole that I've made. Before that, there was just this thin piece here, right, this thin gap, which was where the button made contact. And this is our new connection here with the T-shape. This is going to make a connection with this one. Probably I should maybe even drill that out just a little bit more. As you can see, it will make contact. Maybe I'll drill that out just a little bit more this way. That way we can get an even better contact with it. But before that, it was only just the left small part of the button that was getting connection. So I'll get on that, and we'll put this thing back together and show you how it lights up. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so finally in the end, here you can see what it looks like all put back together. You can't really tell that anything has been done from the outside here. If you look at the inside, you can see that there's a gouge here, unfortunately, that happened when I was drilling away at that inside piece. But if you take a look at the top part here, you can see this comes down now in a T shape, and that makes a little bit more contact on that side. And on the right side here, we've got the screw that comes down along with the regular post. And if we put in our controller here, this was made for our left controller, no, our right controller. This is our right controller one. If we take a look at the top here, just a little bit of pressure. We've got our left, and with just a little bit of pressure, we've got our right. So this should help us out with playing some of those games like Super Mario Kart or other games, you know, that we can use just one controller with. And I know that some people are thinking probably this is, you know, $8. You spent way more time trying to repair it than, you know, and modify it than what it's worth. It's probably better just to send it back or to get the pro version of the controllers and whatnot. And, you know, to an extent, that's probably pretty true. But for this here, I mean, for the price, and basically it didn't take that much to modify this that much at all either. And, you know, finally being able to use this with a little bit more grip than the original controller, I think, yeah, it's not too bad. You know, this isn't going to be for everyone, and I'm sure a lot of people might not even, you know, try to attempt this kind of mod for it, but since these things are quite cheap, it gives you a little bit more control and a little bit more of a grip here, and it's not too bad. But yeah, that's about all for the repairs for this video. I'll try and see what else I can come up with, but figured we could make one of these right now and show you how that goes. But that's about all for me for right now. Like always, I'll put up another video here soon, so thanks for watching. Watching some Switch controller, brand new mod repair stuff. Now I'm going to have to go ahead and modify the other controller. Ooh, that's going to be a lot more fun. get on that and have some gaming. Alright, so here I am. I took apart the other controller, and what I'm going to try and work on is the left-hand joystick controller. And one thing that I found out to make it a little bit easier for marking as far as where the holes are going to be drilled out is by putting the controller in the slot here and then marking the hole out so you can actually see that there's let's see, the button over here on the left side. And depending on where this post is going to fall, I think it'll fall right in the middle there. And that should give it at least a little bit more leverage to fit on the side. This one here is going to have to go a little bit closer to the middle. So I'm going to have to take this kind of middle bridge out, which is holding the plastic piece in the top here to see the light. But it's very similar to what I did with the last one. But as you can see how far off this is, yeah, it's just a bit of a mess here. But what we're going to do is try and get this one modded up as well, and hopefully we'll have two that work out quite well. Once again, I'll try and get this thing drilled out a little bit more on this side and modify the top parts here, and then we'll go from there. So I'll get on that and hopefully be able to show you guys the final result. Be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here is the second one all modified up. We've got the screw hole on this side that come down, and our T-shaped side that comes down on this side. So this should work out a lot better. This is the second one, the original one, if you remember here. This is the first one that I made with the left side that has the T-shape, and then the right side which has the screw that comes down on this. But this one will be dedicated for the left side controller. Try and dust this thing off. I haven't put this thing in here. One thing I did notice, however, which is quite interesting, is there was this clear spot on the side, and if by looking in the front here you can see that's the window, and that is for the right side controller. The right side controller is the only one that has the sensor on it. This one doesn't have any sensor on it at all, which makes me believe that they tried to design this basically for one side of the controller, but they didn't even get it perfectly right for just one side. And I think if they were able to get it right for one side, it would have been all right. But the idea that they've basically cloned all of them to have the same sensor bar window in here, when this doesn't have any sensor bar on it, but the other one does. It's just kind of a really poor design. But let's pop this thing in here and take a look at it. Still got a lot of dust and whatnot on it, but try and pop this thing in and check some of that. Alright, so let's see, for left, oh there we go, very, very easy to push down on that. Yeah, no problems there. And for the right side here, oh yeah, there we go. So we've now got our left and right on both of these controllers now, and this should make it a lot easier and much more playable by having just a little bit more grip on the side here. Like I'd mentioned, this controller is really, really small, and the original tab that you have here is just pinpoint right on the front tip part of your finger, whereas this one kind of gives you a little bit more of a curve, and it gives you a little bit more, I think, to grab onto here as far as a controller goes.